Hey everyone, Rich Munroe here with BNB Investing Group. Thanks for jumping on this week. Just as a reminder, BNB Investing Group helps new investors and experienced investors, as well as real estate agents, navigate the short-term rental model. Whether you're trying to do acquisitions, the rental arbitrage strategy, or manage properties, we kind of help you look at all those different strategy options. And we also review different service providers. And what we're doing today, we have experienced investors that we like chatting with and kind of seeing what their experiences have been. And I'm welcoming a good friend of mine, Niyi, on with us today from Ekabo Homes. I actually participated in one of his podcasts several weeks ago and really enjoyed his community. So Niyi, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Rich, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. I can tell you that the episode that we did, so many people have gained value from it, and a lot of them are fighting to get into the BNB investing group. So thank you for kind of coming on. And yeah, my name is Niyi Adewole. I'm an investor-friendly realtor in the Atlanta area, and I've been investing personally since 2016. And when I moved down to Atlanta, that's when I started getting into short-term rental investing. I know we're going to dive deep into that story, but that's a little bit of background.
All right, that's awesome. That's awesome. Those of you that are jumping on, please throw a quick yes in the comments if you can hear us okay. And like usual, happy to take any questions. So if you have any questions that come to mind, throw them in the chat and we'll address those as well. So no, I'm super excited to kind of dig in with you, Niyi. I know that you're very similar to our business where you are doing multiple strategies. But I'd really like to see just, in the beginning, is it when you moved to Atlanta, is that when you kind of got started? And what was that first property like and kind of what made you lean into that direction?
Yeah, so similar to your story, I started off with, some long-term rentals, right? And when I started investing back in 2016, one of my major motivations was financial freedom, right? And I got locked into the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I was listening to that, which I'm sure you listened to, and a couple others that are on here. And that convinced me that house hacking was one of the best ways to do it. And so from 2016 all the way to the beginning of 2021, all I did was buy small multifamily homes that I ideally tried to house hack, or I just kept stacking those up and I had them as long-term rentals. But along the way, as every real estate investor should, I was talking to people and letting them know what I do. And others that were also investors started telling me about this short-term rental game. And so I never really got into it until I moved to Atlanta and I started looking at, okay, these are the houses I want to buy. But if I house hack this house and rent it as a long-term rental, it's not necessarily going to make sense. Let me look into this short-term rental thing that all my friends have been talking about. And so when I bought my first house in Atlanta in February of 2021, I purposely bought a home, a single family with an in-law suite that I could rent out on Airbnb. And I bought it in such a way that, hey, if I can bring in, half of what this AirDNA thing is talking about, I'm good with living in this home. And it has exceeded my expectations. So that was my first start and my first unit. And since then, now we are sitting here 3 years later. We've grown the portfolio to 8 short-term rentals in the Metro, 2 long-term rentals, and a management company that manages 25 plus short-term rentals if you include ours as well.
Very cool, very cool. And so that very first one that you did as a house hack, so was that a duplex, a basement, and a top level? What was the setup for it?
Yeah, it was a single family with an in-law suite. And the people that we bought it from, they were using the in-law suite for like a workout room. So when I walked in, having done house hacks all across the country, I immediately saw the opportunity to close off one door. It had an exterior entrance. We had to build out in a kitchenette, right? And after we finished that kitchenette, we furnished it and put it on Airbnb and started bringing in the income.
All right, awesome. And so basically it had a separate entrance from the main house. And so you were living in the main house and then basically had electronic lock that you put on the separate entrance in the in-law suite. And was there separate parking set up as well, or how did that look?
So the parking was the tough part. I live in East Atlanta Village, right? And this is where we did that house hack. And so it's a lot of street parking. We do have a garage, but it's not set up in a way where you can share that. And so we just said, hey, you have one parking spot and it's right to the left of the house. And that's how we do it. And then we set it up in our software to show people a picture of, hey, this is where you park. And it sends it out automatically a couple hours before they check in.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah, we do that occasionally. There's in Atlanta especially, there's a lot of complex ways to get to the property. We had a quadplex near Piedmont Park that basically, if you went the GPS route to get to the property, it would take you directly to Piedmont Avenue versus a back alley down Fifth Street to get to the location. And so we did the exact same thing, kind of a pictorial with arrows, act like they're really just dumbed down to kind of show them how to get back there. And then also, this is where you park with an arrow to where they park. So yeah, that definitely works well as far as being able to do that. You do that heavy lifting once, and then you use that for all your guests, and it never becomes a question. Everybody's crystal clear. It's nothing better than using a picture. So that's good stuff. And so you've continually done this. You've done this with multiple properties, right? So do you still have that original property that you started with?
Yeah, as an STR, I'm actually sitting in that original property right now. Now, the
Very cool.
equity's grown so much because it's an awesome neighborhood that we're planning to sell this within the next month or so. But we're buying another house that we have under contract that's going to allow us to do this twice as much. We're buying basically a triplex where we can live in one unit and Airbnb out the other two units and essentially cover, I want to say 90% of our mortgage because it's an awesome area. This home, we were able to cover about 60% of our mortgage. And that's what tuned us on to it in 2021 and made us start ramping up quickly.
Got it. So in that in-law fleet, what was the average nightly rate and kind of your monthly number that you were getting as revenue on it?
Yeah, so we were hoping like that we could pull in about 1,500 per month. That's what would make us comfortable staying here. But we've been pulling on average 2,500 a month for a one-bedroom in-law suite, which is crazy. And we've had other people try to book it for extended period of times for a slight discount, but we've tended to deny that because it stays booked pretty consistently at our higher rates.
And never any issues with the fact that you're living in the same spot, you have guests coming and going, or has that been an advantage for you to kind of have be very proactive if there's something that doesn't look quite right?
Yeah, as a house hacker, right? It's not for everybody, but this is something that I highly advise anybody, especially if you're earlier in your career, things of that nature, and you're okay with slight uncomfort. This is an awesome way to get into a property for minimal down, right? I was able to buy an awesome house for 5% down. Where else could you get that type of deal and cover 60% of the mortgage with an Airbnb down below? And so for us, there was no issue with that because it's completely separate. And we had to use those pictures to kind of show people where to go. But early on, before we knew what we were doing, right, we didn't have those pictures. So we get the same messages over and over. Hey, where am I parking? Or somebody would park in the driveway. I'm like, buddy, this is, look at the house. Like, does it make sense that you would block everybody in the driveway, right? That type of deal. But we've gotten better over time, right? We've gotten better
Mhm.
over time and been able to put the systems in place and vet out the different individuals to make sure we're getting the best guests at our place as well.
Got it. So you went from the first property that you're actually sitting in right now. What did you do next to branch into the next property? What was the next one? What did that look like?
Man, so this one got me excited when I saw the numbers that were coming in and kind of the dollars hitting your account immediately, plus the cleaning over and over. You didn't have to worry about somebody living there for 12 months and then not knowing what it's going to look like. I immediately started searching for another property that summer. So I acquired this one in February of 2021. The next one I purchased was in June of 2021, and it was about 3 blocks away, same neighborhood, but a full house, a 3-bed, 2-bath in East Atlanta Village, right? That we purchased that would not work as a long-term rental, but we knew looking at the AirDNA numbers and what we were able to do before that, hey, we can furnish this and make it a dope short-term rental. And it's been killing it ever since. That home's been bringing in between 3,500 on the low season and 6,500 during the summers on average per month. And
Hmm.
as a long-term rental, when we purchased it, the median rent was like 2,700. And so when you look at those numbers, it makes a lot of sense for us to continue going. But that was the second house.
Very cool, very cool. And those of you, myself and Niyi, unfortunately learned the hard way by having long-term tenants and experiencing. You do this great, and especially a lot of our properties, we buy them as rehabs. So you do this great rehab, you bust your butt, and you get it all nice and pretty, and then you get that long-term tenant in there, and before you know it, they're gonna stop paying your rent. They're gonna be late on the rent, and we had a lot of these properties, and for some reason, right before the holidays, people go spend their money on the holidays instead of paying the rent. So you got to evict people right before Christmas, And then come to find out when you get in the property, it's you got to remodel it again. You got to dig into your rehab dollars, and so it's very you got to get a lot of properties for long-term rentals for it to really be meaningful enough dollars. And to shift over to the short-term rental model is so refreshing because we are inspecting these properties, we're cleaning them. We want that property to look like it did 6 months ago when we took the listing pictures. And so you blink your eyes, and that same property, compared to having a long-term tenant, is going to be in much, much better shape. And so and the icing on the cake, of course, is like you mentioned, your revenue is going to be typically 2 to 3 times that of a long-term rental. And so, for me, that was a light bulb moment 9 years ago. That's why we only do short-term rentals today, for sure.
Agreed.
So
And one
yeah,
caveat to that piece, because I'm 100% with you. Having done the long-term rentals for essentially 5.5 years straight before shifting over to the short-term rental, I can attest that everything you just said is true and factual. The one piece that did catch us off guard a bit is it's a lot more involved, especially early on. You've
yeah,
got to hit a certain velocity, right? This is not a game where I would say, hey, I'm just going to get 2 or 3. I would try to, if you really want to do this and be an investor in a short-term rental game, you want to try to get to economies of scale to where now you're doing less. Like if you own 2 or 3 short-term rentals, you're probably the one that's doing all the messaging, late night, things of that nature. And you got to really tighten up and set up your systems. But once you get to like 6, 7, 8, or even start managing some, now you can hire team members. And
yeah.
I can tell you right now, we're taking on 3 more units in the next 2 weeks. And I'm sleeping peacefully, man. It's not
Yeah.
me. We got a whole team to handle it.
Yeah. Totally agree. And we haven't. I'm not sure if you're employing any of the rental arbitrage strategy, but we did that in the beginning, and for that reason, it kind of catapulted us to be able to be scalable much quicker. For that same reason you're describing, we went from maybe 1 or 2 units to 12 within a 6-month window. And with the rental arbitrage strategy, it only takes a couple of relationships with those landlord owners. They immediately see the benefit of working with you, and so they start opening up their inventory and sharing with you the ones that are expiring. And so, I mean, we've had 30-day windows where we've onboarded as many as 8 units at one time because it's an opportunity that we're faced with being able to jump on. And so, our current infrastructure for guest communications and back office, we have a capacity of about 65 listings. So if we're 20, 30, 40, 50 listings as you're growing your operation, you can really get a lot of efficient economies of scale because of the number of units that you're doing. And so it's definitely better to be larger sooner than later, for sure.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So the management piece, and I'm also managing for other investors as well, and I'd love to share some insight one side or the other. But from what kind of got you into that as you were already self-managing your own properties? How did it end up being with other investors as well?
Yeah, so kind of what we talked about before, right? I am a realtor, and so I work, and my team works mostly with investors. That is kind of the niche that we've drilled down into because we realize a lot of realtors aren't well versed in that world. And so some of the investors that I work with were like, "Hey, could you help manage my property?" And so I had my 2, and they were doing well. I was like, "You know what? Yeah, sure, I can take on a couple more. This will help cover some of the costs of the software that I'm using, and it's not necessarily harder to add something to a system you've already built." And so I took on, I want to say 2 under management in 2021, and so a total of 4 if you count my 2. And then heading into 2022 is when it exploded. The ones that we were managing for started referring me out to other individuals. Started having random people reach out just through word of mouth, like, "Hey, Niyi's pretty good at managing this." And that's when we started to really grow that management side, and I started to put pen to paper and figure out, okay, what should we be charging for this? What is the actual time involved? What pieces do we need to do this correctly? And started building it out. But long story short, it started toward the end of 2021, and it's just grown consistently since then to now we have 25 under management, taking on another 3 here in the next 2 weeks. And now we have an operations manager. We've got a team that is a VA team that we've trained up that works around the clock to help be the front line answering guest messages. And we've got a bunch of other pieces that help as well, full-time maintenance people and things of that nature.
No, that's definitely awesome, and like we just talked about, the fact that you throw in more listings, and you're doing it with other people's properties does nothing but help the overall operation for everything that you're currently doing, and get you more efficient and more quality focused. So that, not to mention, you're able to earn 20 to 25% of that gross rental revenue, and so it kind of adds to your monthly net cash flow. I mean, what I love about strategically being able to do that is it all just goes right into the same operational funnel, whether you're doing arbitrage or if you own the unit or if you're managing for other investors. You're not really doing too much different in each example, and you're definitely able to kind of maximize your revenue in all cases across the board. So that makes perfect sense. Now, one of the things that I've learned managing properties, I mean, I went, as we were scaling up to 75 properties, I probably had maybe 30 or 35 that were under management, and the other half were properties that we owned or did rental arbitrage with. And at the time, I would not turn down any opportunity to manage someone's property. So I would just they would just get thrown on the pile, right? So today I'm a little bit more selective, because I tend to typically work with investors that have a large number of properties. They have a real estate investor mindset, instead of just a one-off person that owns just one property, and they're kind of a little bit more high maintenance, right? And so it affords me the luxury to be a little bit more selective, so that you can kind of tap into clients that have a similar mindset as you from a business perspective, and recognize the value that we bring to the table to basically manage the short-term rental process. So not sure if you've gotten to that point yet, or you've, all of us go through the same thing. You're just anxious to grow and add more listings. And so I'm not sure if you've had a change of opinion in that, or if you're still kind of ripping and running.
No, I think you're spot on, right? So one of the things that we don't budge on is our management fee, right? And so that eliminates a couple people, because some people will say, hey, if I give you 2 units, can we go to
Yeah.
X%? I'm like, hey, like there's a lot involved in this. We're good, And then
Yeah.
also, we've bumped up our onboarding fee, because it does take a good amount of work to get these things up and running, right? We have designers coming in, we have our operations manager being focused there and really trying to get this thing off the ground. One place where we differ a bit, and I haven't tapped into this strategy much at all, right? The arbitrage model. And so when you look at some of the people that want us to manage, they may have properties, that they're doing arbitrage with, where it's rentals, things of
Yeah.
that nature. We tend to turn those down, right? Because we want to deal directly with the owner of the property, or at least, maybe one step removed, maybe the manager for the owner of the property, and do single families and things of that nature, as opposed to in the apartments. Now, I know that you specialize in this piece, and that's what helped grow your business significantly. We just haven't ventured into that for fear, and it's probably a false fear, but for fear that now we've got 2 people to answer to.
Well, one of our largest clients historically is when we expanded into the Tampa, Florida market, and we went from maybe 4 properties to up to 22. None of them were apartments. These were all 3, 4, 5 bedroom homes in Tampa, and the vast majority of them by this investor that's in Tampa was done by rental arbitrage. And they had us as their manager for those properties. And so it goes back to being selective with who the client is. If they're very strategic, and they view this more as an asset management piece, and they understand the value of having you there to kind of be the focus on the management piece, then that makes sense. But with the rental arbitrage with the apartments, sometimes, especially the 1 and 2 bedrooms, the numbers can get very tight. And so to have enough lift in there to afford to pay the 20 to 25% management fee, it can get very tight. So it's usually better equipped to manage when you're looking at some of the larger properties on
Agreed.
arbitrage.
100% agreed. And I can tell you, we manage from 1 bedroom all the way up to a 10,000 square foot mansion. And you think the people with the mansion would be the ones that be more on it and on you, but there's so much profit in there that They pretty much let you do your thing. And so that's been
Yeah.
a nice discovery. So we're definitely looking to take on larger properties that we can manage. And even personally, right? When you're able to manage all these properties, what it allows you to do is see, okay, these areas of town seem to hit a bit more during this period of time, or just across the board. And hey, this size of home in this location does really well. And so it helps you when you're looking to go buy your next investment as well, to target different areas.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm curious to get your opinion on this. Being a realtor and managing properties. I've had some of our student clients in the BNB investing program that are real estate agents that uh, have looked at the management opportunity, but have had their broker basically turn them down because it kind of conflicts with the real estate rules as far as agents go. Now I know in most states right now, including Georgia, there's not a requirement for someone to manage a property to be a licensed real estate agent, but I'm coming across this conflict in the other direction, and I would love to hear your opinion on that and kind of what your standpoint is on that.
Yeah, I think it's a weird rule and regulation. That being said, right, we don't manage long-term rentals. Like, we only do
Yeah.
my personal portfolio for long-term. I think that's where most of the rules and things of that nature were created. It wasn't for this world of co-hosting as a short-term rental, management company. And so, personally, I think that if you are a short-term rental investor as a realtor, that you should, if you have the bandwidth, be helping some investors and things of that nature with the management piece. It's not only going to increase your business from a realtor perspective, because now you've solved a problem that a potential out-of-state client could have, but it's also going to give you some steady income on the back end as that co-host slash management company for them. And it allows you to have even more breadth and authority when you're talking to clients and working through the numbers to say, hey, I'm not just looking at a spreadsheet on AirDNA. I'm actually comparing this with the numbers that we're pulling from similarly sized, similar area properties. And I can tell you this is what we're doing. And I can show that to you.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an unnecessary hurdle. If a realtor has the opportunity to delve into this option to increase their monthly cash flow, and it's a nice fit with the clientele of folks they're already talking to. A lot of our clients in the beginning came from investors that had done great rehabs and they weren't able to sell the house. It came off as an expired listing, and so this is a great option for those types of situations. And so, it's good to be as a realtor or as an investor to have a toolbox of solutions. And short-term rentals is one of those tools that you can pull out of your toolbox depending on the situation. And I think I think it would be more productive if there was a clear, consistent message from the brokerage firms that kind of address this one way or the other, because it's very convoluted and each firm has a different opinion on it, and so it kind of creates this environment where folks aren't comfortable with it. So that's my take on it.
True. And I think you hit on one major piece. Like, that extra income to a realtor can mean a lot, and it can take some pressure off. I can tell
Hmm.
you that when I was investing during the first portion of my career, really most of my career, I was working as a medical device sales rep with a Fortune 500 healthcare company. And so that's what I did, from 2015 all the way up until August of 22. Now, the inflection point in August of 22 that allowed me to walk away from the W 2 and move into full time real estate as a realtor, investor, and manager was that management piece, right? As a realtor, it was starting to ramp up, but it's still pretty delayed. And it's like, okay, are you going to have enough month to month to cover your bills and then have that extra above and beyond? And what I didn't depend on when I was making the strategy and saying, hey, I want to be able to leave my W 2 by 2025 because I've ramped up my realtor business, I was not depending on management income. The management income helped shorten that timeline from 2025 to August of 2022, and we just accelerated since then.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, that's definitely a huge advantage. And so, I think I mentioned to you that I'm recently providing a CE class for real estate agents for that reason, to kind of educate them more on the process and how to do a market analysis and how to navigate the different regulatory things, and just kind of give them the management piece as an option, really, to be able to do exactly what you described. Real estate agents are very similar to real estate investors. You're only as good as your very next deal. And so you got to keep that pipeline consistently full, and it's a rat race. You got to keep the grind. And so anything that you can do to get monthly positive cash flow and consistent is definitely something that's good for business, and good to have multiple streams of income as well. So so I know you mentioned you are about to buy another property that you're about to move into and house hack, and would love to hear about kind of what your growth plans are from here in terms of, are you going to be doing more house hacking, or what's the future looking like for Ekabo Homes?
Yeah, I believe that everybody, for your first home that you're going to purchase, if you're able to, you should house hack, right? It's one of the best ways to get started in investing. It's almost like starting with training wheels, right? Because you're going to live on site at the property. It's going to be a little bit of uncomfort compared to having, a full single family to yourself. Sure, but think that all I got to do is live here for 1 year, and you could do it next year and the next year and the next year. And so recently, I know I believe we touched on it on our call before. Some lending laws were changed late last year, and so now you're allowed to put down 5% on up to a 4 unit if you're going to live there, right? And so I plan to house hack for as long as I can, which will probably be until my future children reach school age. So I'm going to continue. My wife's on board right now, so we're going to house hack until she tells me I can't,
Nice,
and keep
nice.
building the portfolio. And so I mentioned all this to say we try to buy in some of the best neighborhoods, right? Because we're able to get homes for 5% down, and we're able to house hack it in a way with this Airbnb house hack method that allows you to cover most of the mortgage, live comfortably, and have that home appreciate. And so the home I'm sitting in right now, we purchased for 670 back in 2021, right? It's appreciated to the point where now it's worth a little over 900 because the neighborhood that it's in. And so now we're going to take all that equity because we've lived here for 2 years. There's no tax that's going to come to us on, up to 500K in earned income. We're going to reposition that into another house hack that costs roughly $1 million, where we only have to put down 50K, keep the rest of those funds, use that to invest in real estate elsewhere, and do the same thing over. And guess what? The mortgages, we don't even care about the interest rates where they are right now, because it has 2 additional units that we can rent out. One of them is like a 4-bed, 3-bath that's going to kill it on Airbnb. The other one's like a 1-bedroom, kind of like what we have here. And so that's kind of the goal from a house hack standpoint. Outside of that, I'm looking to do more creative deals as well. We actually closed on our first subject to deal earlier this year, and took over a property that was not performing as well as it could be as a short-term rental. We put about $5,000 into it to refresh it, kept all the furniture, and we have it worked out in the deal where we don't have to pay more than that mortgage amount that we took over until 3 years from now. And by that time, we're betting on the appreciation of that house based on the neighborhood that's in and the events that are coming to town, i.e., the World Cup in 2026, to kind of elevate that property and allow us to sell it and take a profit. I guess what I'm looking to do throughout this year, if you look at the actual goals that we wrote down, is I want to increase the number of units owned by 8. I'm not necessarily in it for cash flow from my personal properties. I think there's enough coming in from the realtor piece and from the management. I just want to buy as many plots of land with a property attached to it as I can around the Metro of Atlanta, because there's so many people moving here, right? And that's the piece that I keep getting on, and that's probably why I haven't done as much of the arbitrage, is because when you look at just the migration patterns, everybody's moving to the Southeast. Atlanta, Georgia is one of the top metros. 30 of the Fortune 1000 companies are based here, right? Microsoft put an East Coast is putting their East Coast headquarters here. I know they paused the project for now, but we're hoping that kind of picks back up. They're going to build on 90 acres. Nike put their tech hub here. Rivian just put a $5 billion factory about 30 minutes south of the city. And so all signs are pointing to Atlanta being one of those meccas that a lot of individuals are going to move to. And so I want to buy as many pieces of land and have those cash flow via short-term rental and let it appreciate in value.
Love it, love it. Now, guys, this is a great strategy. That 5% down is powerful, and like Niya's pointing out, it's not so much about the high interest rates right now. It's more about your monthly net cash flow, and if you've got a big enough spread, when you layer in the other unit is what it's going to do on short-term rental revenue, the interest rate, frankly, and the price of the home doesn't really matter. It's about your monthly sustainability compared to your monthly expenses and your debt service. And so that's a huge kind of mindset shift, and definitely a big value for the folks that are watching, I'm sure. I'm going to throw in the comments section, and guys, feel free to throw any questions out in the comments like I mentioned earlier. But this is a link to how to reach Niyi and all of his different things he has going on. Like he said, he's a realtor. He's also got a weekly podcast that he does, where it's focused on real estate and kind of what's going on as far as options go. So feel free to reach out and check that out. Now, you had mentioned to me as well, Niyi, just before this, you are also looking at other markets besides Atlanta. Is that right?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned this at the top, but when I first started with long-term rental investing, that was in Louisville, Kentucky, because I was living there for the work I was doing before I moved away from there. And so that was where I bought my first investment and kept buying a lot of long-term rentals. But now I'm partnered with my realtor out there, and we're building and developing plots of land. So we bought 11 acres last year. We subdivided it 2 acres and 9 acres. The 2 acres, we just finished building 200 plus self-storage units that we're actually launching tomorrow. I literally met with her before this call. And then for the other 9 acres, we're going to develop 105 townhome units. So long story short, I'm in and out of Louisville a lot. And so you inspired me on our last call to go out of state. All the short-term rentals we own right now are in Georgia. And so I'm like, you know what? Louisville will be a good spot. You got the Derby, that's a nice pool. And so planning to buy one out there this year and have that as a short-term rental that we can stay in when we're in town, but also rent out and have it cover itself and bring us some income as well.
No, that's awesome. So a good friend of mine, Anthony Williams, he's also a board member on Amster with me. He's in that market as well, and he does well. He's been there for a little over a year now. I think he expanded up there. But I've found that it's you've already got your business up and running. We did as well when we expanded into the Tampa market. I'm also looking at Charlotte and Greenville, South Carolina as well. It's basically like setting up a new unit, right? It's heavy lifting in the beginning, that first 30 to 45 days. And you set your teams in place and your local boots on the ground companies you're going to work with, get the property staged and set up, and then you step back from it. So we manage our properties I have properties on Lake Lanier that are 10 minutes from where I live. Or I have properties 7 hours drive in Tampa. I'm treating operationally both of those properties the exact same way. And so if something is breaking or someone needs to go to the property to check it, it's not physically me. If you want to grow this thing at scale and run it like a business, you can definitely have your teams in place and have a structure and a process that allows you to do this anywhere in the world, frankly, once you've got your operation built in your back office. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about that expansion up there to Lexington. Happy to help any way I can as well in terms of what we learned along the way to do it remotely. It's going to be a little scary in the beginning, but I assure you, once you get it set up, you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and Rich, again, thank you for the inspiration on this one. It was definitely our conversation that inspired that, and also our conversation that inspired one of our goals for 2025 or maybe 2026 now, which is to go out of country, right? So I know
Yeah.
that you're doing out of country too, and that's the major aspiration.
Definitely. That's the other thing that's the icing on the cake with this model. Once you learn it and build it, you can do this anywhere in the world. And so we've already expanded into the Caribbean. We're looking at a couple of different projects down there. We want to look at Europe and Portugal and some of those markets. And real estate is real estate. I mean, the cultures are different, the rules are a little bit different, but you can do rental arbitrage in some of these vacation destination spots and have somewhere to go hang out for vacation at the same time, and basically just like you're doing with your house hacks, have it generate revenue for you in the meantime. So it's definitely a benefit for this space for sure. So want to thank you for jumping on this week. It's been super interesting learning about your business, and look forward to staying in touch and kind of exchanging notes. And for those of you that are jumping on, I did throw Niyi's contact information in the chat, so you can kind of check out his podcast as well every week. And definitely love to have you back sometime and get an update on your expansion to Lexington, as well as the new house hack that you're about to get set up as well.
Absolutely. I would love to. I truly appreciate you allowing us to be on the live stream today as well. I look forward to just tracking your journey, man.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for watching as well. And just as a reminder, if you want to get more information on the BNB Investing Group and how we work with students and clients, and if you're ready to grow a scalable business, I can do a quick call with you just to check in and see what your goals are and see if it'll be a good fit for you or not. So feel free to reach out to me directly on Facebook Messenger. And until then, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, everybody, for jumping on. And thanks again, Niyi. Really appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
See you guys.